When the world goes quiet, some voices still remain. Not every soul finds peace when the clock strikes 12. There are stories hidden in the shadows, whispers drifting between the living and the forgotten. Some stories linger, some souls don't leave. Welcome to Stillness After Midnight, where every silence tells a story. If you're drawn to the mysteries that stir after dark, the voices that echo when the world sleeps, subscribe now and join us as we listen to the souls who still have something to say, because in the stillness, the truth finally speaks. I should have never let her go. That's the thought that circles me each night, like a vulture that never tires. I told myself I ended things for her sake, for both of us. But the truth is simpler, uglier. I was a coward. I thought love was just another weight I could set down when it grew too heavy. Her name was Anya. She loved me with the kind of devotion that should have frightened me, but instead, I took it for granted. When I told her it was over, I remember the silence on the line, long, brittle, like glass waiting to shatter. I thought she would cry or beg. She didn't. She simply whispered, "There must be a way." I didn't know what she meant until weeks later. The messages began quietly. Photographs of Thai temples, lantern-lit streets, night markets that looked older than time itself. She said she was traveling, trying to heal. I wanted to believe her. But then came the voice messages at strange hours, her breath ragged, her tone unsteady. She spoke of a woman she'd met at a market, a woman who sold her something to bring me back, a bracelet of dark beads threaded with a single red one that gleamed like a drop of blood. I laughed when she told me. I dismissed it as superstition, as desperation dressed in silk. "Anya," I said, "you can't force love. These charms are just trinkets for tourists." But she wasn't laughing. She told me she heard someone calling her name at 2 in the morning, every night since she wore it. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she swore the voice was inside her room. She said her reflection in the mirror sometimes blinked when she didn't. Her last call came in a trembling whisper, so quiet I had to press the phone against my chest to catch it. "It's not me in the glass anymore. Please come. Please, before it's too late." I didn't believe her, not until I stood in front of her days later, and the woman I once loved turned her face toward me. The lips were hers. The eyes were not. That is why I tell you this story now. Because love, when twisted by desperation, becomes something darker than hate. And because I saw with my own eyes the cost of seeking what should never be touched. Stories have teeth, and hers is still biting. They say the things you regret most are not the mistakes you make, but the moments you turn away and never return. I know this now, though I learned it too late. When I close my eyes, I can still see her face the night I left. The way her lips trembled, not from anger, not even from sorrow, but from a silence that cut deeper than any scream. We had been together for 3 years, not long by some measures, but enough to carve her name into the marrow of my life. Anya was the kind of woman who carried warmth like a lantern, always giving more than she kept for herself. She believed in omens, in signs, in whispers that drifted on the wind. I, on the other hand, believed only in what I could measure, weigh, and reason with. Perhaps that is why we broke. Perhaps that is why this story now belongs to shadows. I ended things on a rainy afternoon, the kind where the streets blur with reflections and the air smells of metal and dust. I told her I couldn't go on, that I needed space, that I wasn't the man she thought I was. Truthfully, I was afraid of the intensity of her love. It was too much, too consuming, and I, fool that I was, thought I needed freedom more than devotion. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply stood there, her hands clutching the sleeves of her cardigan, her eyes wide with something I couldn't read. When I walked away, I told myself she would heal, that she would move on. I wanted to believe my absence would save her from disappointment, but love has a way of turning absence into a wound that never closes. Weeks passed, and silence grew between us like ivy crawling over a forgotten wall. Until one night, long past midnight, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from her. "I'm in Chiang Mai. It's beautiful here. You'd like it." I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure if I should reply. I didn't. Another message came the next night, this one with a photograph. Lanterns floating across a river, their reflections like fireflies trapped in water. Beneath it she wrote, "Some lights are meant to guide the lost back home." Her words unsettled me, though I couldn't say why. I convinced myself she was moving on, finding new beauty, seeking new meaning. That should have been enough. But then came the third message, one that shifted the ground beneath me. It was a voice recording. When I pressed play, I heard her whispering, breathless, as though she were speaking in a temple, afraid of being overheard. "I found something," she said. "A woman in the night market gave me a bracelet. She promised it would bring love back. Bind it close so it never slips away. I thought of you immediately. I thought, maybe this is our chance." Her voice cracked, and for a moment I thought she was crying. But then she laughed, soft, strange, almost giddy. "It feels warm when I wear it. Isn't that funny? Like it's alive." I should have deleted the message. I should have told myself it was just grief speaking through her, nothing more. Instead, I replayed it over and over, the sound of her fragile laughter burrowing into me like a nail. The next time she called, it was 2 in the morning. I remember because I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand, and when I answered, her voice came through in a trembling rush. "They're calling me," she said, "every night at the same time. 2 o'clock. A woman's voice. She whispers my name over and over, like she's standing right beside my bed." I rubbed my eyes, half asleep, half annoyed. "Anya, it's just your mind playing tricks. You've been through a lot. You're lonely, that's all." "No," she hissed. "I can see her." Her words jolted me awake. "See who?" "The one calling me. I don't know her face, but she's there, in the mirror." At first I thought it was just me, just my reflection. But the longer I stare, the more I realize it isn't. Her lips move when mine don't. She blinks when I don't. And her eyes... Her voice trailed off into a shaky breath. "Her eyes are watching me from the other side." I sat in silence, gripping the phone until my knuckles burned. I wanted to tell her to throw the bracelet away, to leave whatever market she had wandered into. But something in her voice, the raw terror stitched with obsession, told me it wouldn't be so simple. "Anya, listen to me," I said. "Stop wearing it. Just take it off." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her words chilled me to the bone. "I can't. It doesn't come off anymore." I pressed her, begged her to explain, but the call ended abruptly, cut short by static that hissed like a storm. For minutes I sat in the darkness of my room, staring at the glow of the dead line, my chest tight with something I refused to name. That was the first night I felt it, the weight of her fear bleeding through the miles between us, pressing against my skin like a hand in the dark. I didn't sleep again until dawn. When she stopped answering my calls, I told myself it was nothing. People disappear into silence for 100 different reasons. But this silence had a pulse, a thickness that clung to my skin like humidity before a storm. Every night I stared at my phone, waiting for it to light up with her name, and every night the screen stayed black. By the fourth day, the guilt had grown unbearable. It was my fault she was there. My fault she had gone searching for something to hold on to after I let her go. I had torn the ground from beneath her feet, and now she was sinking into places I could not see. I booked the first flight to Thailand. The journey blurred together. The sterile airport lights, the muffled announcements, the dull roar of engines cutting through clouds. But I remember the dreams. Each time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice. Not the trembling whisper of fear she had left on my phone, but a calm, lilting tone that made my chest ache. She said my name again and again, like a mantra. At first it comforted me, but then I realized it wasn't quite her voice. It was softer, older, carrying a weight that didn't belong to her. And when I woke, I found my hands clenched around the armrest, my knuckles white, as though I had been trying to hold something or someone back. When I landed in Chiang Mai, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and jasmine. I took a taxi through winding streets lit by paper lanterns swaying in the night breeze. The driver didn't speak much English, but when I asked him about the night market, something flickered across his face, a hesitation. His hands tightened on the wheel. "There are many markets," he said finally. "Which one you want?" "The one that opens after midnight," I replied. He fell silent after that. The hotel was modest, a narrow building tucked between a tea shop and a shrine, where incense burned in tall, trembling plumes. I should have slept, but the city hummed too loud beneath my window. Monks chanted somewhere in the distance, their voices low and rhythmic, like the earth itself was breathing. And beneath it all, faint but insistent, I thought I heard a woman humming. The melody rose and fell like the tide, brushing against my consciousness until I sat upright in bed, heart hammering. There was no one there, only the mirror across the room, reflecting my pale, sleepless face. I avoided it after that. The next evening, I went looking for her. Chiang Mai is a maze at night, every alley twisting into another, lantern lights spilling over cracked pavement, shadows pooling where no light reached. I asked in shops, in cafes, showing her picture to strangers. Most shook their heads, some looked away too quickly. Finally, an old fruit seller lowered her voice and pointed me toward a narrow alley. "Farang," she said, the Thai word for foreigner. "Your friend go there. Bad place." The alley smelled of damp earth and incense. At the end of it, hidden behind a curtain of bamboo, the night market opened like a wound. Stalls lined both sides, draped in fabrics the color of dried blood. Oil lamps flickered, their flames too steady, as if protected by unseen hands. The air buzzed with whispers in languages I didn't understand. I wandered, my pulse loud in my ears, until I saw her. Anya stood at a stall lit by a single hanging bulb, her hair falling loose around her face. She was thinner, her skin pale beneath the golden glow. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. They were hers, yes, same shape, same depth, but something else lived inside them now. A shadow that watched me with a hunger I had never seen in her before. When she turned, her lips curved into a smile, but it wasn't the smile I remembered. It stretched too wide, too deliberate, as though it had been practiced in the dark. "Finally," she said, her voice smooth and steady, "you came." My throat tightened. I wanted to pull her into my arms, to tell her to leave this cursed place, but my feet felt nailed to the ground. All I could do was stare as she lifted her wrist. The bracelet caught the light. Black beads gleamed like obsidian, and at the center the single red bead pulsed faintly, as if it were breathing. She stepped closer, so close I could see my reflection in that bead. Only it wasn't my reflection at all. It blinked when I didn't. We sat across from each other in a dim cafe near the river. Outside, the lanterns swayed with the breeze, their light reflecting on the water like fractured stars. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and incense someone must have lit earlier in the day. Anya looked the same, and yet she didn't. Her hair fell the way it always had, her fingers still curled around her cup with the same delicate precision. But when she smiled at me, my skin prickled as if the gesture belonged to someone else. "You came for me," she said. I wanted to say yes. I came because I still loved her. But the truth stuck in my throat. I had come because I was afraid. Afraid of the silence, the strange messages, the way her voice had begun to haunt my sleep. "You don't look well," I managed. "You should go home." Her eyes darkened, the corners crinkling with a shadow I couldn't name. "Home? Do you mean London? Or do you mean back to the girl I was before you left me?" She leaned closer. "Because that girl is gone." The words struck me harder than I expected. Guilt flared, but beneath it was something else. Fear. I reached across the table, meaning to touch her hand, to anchor her somehow, but she pulled back quickly, almost violently. The bracelet clinked against the wooden table, the red bead catching the lamplight. For a moment I swore it pulsed again, faint but deliberate, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. "Anya," I whispered, "where did you get it?" Her gaze flickered. "The market. A woman gave it to me. She said love can be bound, like silk around a wrist. She said if I wore it long enough, you would return." She tilted her head, her smile widening unnaturally. "And here you are." Something inside me twisted. It wasn't devotion that shone in her eyes. It was possession. That night I stayed in the same hotel. I told myself it was so I could keep an eye on her, though part of me wanted to run as far away as possible. At 2 o'clock, I woke abruptly, not from a dream, but from a sound. A woman's voice, low and soft, humming a melody that made my teeth ache. The sound came not from the street outside nor from the hallway, but from within my room. I sat up slowly, every muscle tense. My eyes drifted toward the mirror across from the bed. At first I saw only my reflection, pale and wide-eyed. Then the reflection shifted. My lips did not move, but the reflection smiled, a slow, deliberate stretch of the mouth that exposed teeth. And then it spoke. Her voice, Anya's, but layered with something older, heavier. "She wears me well, doesn't she?" The words clawed at my mind, cold and slick. I stumbled from the bed, knocking over the chair. But when I looked again, the reflection was only mine. Terrified, trembling, alone. The next morning, Anya knocked on my door. She looked radiant, almost too radiant, her skin glowing as though she had bathed in firelight. She asked if I slept well. Her tone was sweet, almost mocking. I lied and said yes. But in my chest, dread pooled like lead. Because I knew now, without doubt, that something had crossed the threshold. And it was wearing the woman I once loved like a mask. Chiang Mai is a city of contrasts. In the daylight, it is alive with laughter, markets spilling with fruit and spices, monks in saffron robes walking barefoot across cracked pavement. But when night falls, the streets belong to shadows. The lanterns glow softer, the alleys twist deeper, and the air thickens with the smell of incense. I walked those streets with Anya at my side, though it didn't feel like her anymore. She moved differently now, her steps slower, deliberate, as though she was listening for something only she could hear. Sometimes she tilted her head toward the empty air, lips moving soundlessly, and when I asked who she was speaking to, she only smiled. We passed a shrine where candles burned low. The air shimmered with heat, and the faint ring of a temple bell drifted from somewhere beyond. Anya paused, staring at the flickering flames. "They don't like this place," she murmured. "Who doesn't?" I asked. Her gaze shifted toward me, and for an instant, I thought I saw someone else behind her eyes. A flicker, a shadow. "The ones in the glass." I said nothing. What could I say? That I had seen them too? That I had watched my own reflection speak with her voice? I couldn't bring myself to admit it, not even to her. Later, back at the hotel, she stood before the mirror brushing her hair. I sat on the bed, watching her reflection more than her, waiting for it to betray her again. And it did. Her reflection froze mid-motion while she continued to brush. Then slowly, the reflection turned its head toward me. Her lips didn't move, but in the glass, they curled into that same slow, deliberate smile. I felt the air leave my lungs. I told her we needed help, that we should see someone, a doctor, a healer, anyone who could understand what was happening. She laughed, the sound brittle and hollow. "You still don't understand, do you? This isn't a sickness. It's a gift. I asked for you, and they gave you back to me." She lifted her wrist, the bracelet glinting in the lamplight. "You're here because of this." I wanted to tear it off her, to smash it against the floor, but when I reached for it, she recoiled with a strength I had never felt in her before. For a moment, her voice dropped into a register that wasn't hers at all. Low, guttural, vibrating through the room. "Don't touch what isn't yours." I stumbled back, my heart hammering. She blinked, and just like that, she was Anya again, her expression soft, confused, as though she didn't remember what had just happened. That night I couldn't sleep. I wandered the streets until I found an old man sitting outside a shuttered shop, smoking a thin cigar that glowed like an ember in the dark. His eyes followed me with the stillness of a predator. "You are with her," he said in accented English. I froze. "With who?" "The girl who wears the kunsai." He spat on the ground. "Stupid charm. It binds love, yes. But not only love. Something else comes with it. Always something else." My skin prickled. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer, his breath hot with smoke. "The market woman, she doesn't sell for free. That bracelet," he tapped his wrist, "is not jewelry. It is an invitation. Once you wear it, they see you. And once they see you," his voice faltered, eyes darting to the shadows at the edge of the alley, "they want more." Before I could ask anything else, he shook his head and refused to speak further. I returned to the hotel with his words echoing in my skull. When I opened the door, the lights were out. Anya stood in the middle of the room, facing the mirror. Her reflection smiled at me before she did. And then slowly the reflection stepped forward. The glass did not break. There was no sound. But the air in the room grew thick, pressing against my chest as though the space itself was bending to let something through. Anya turned her head toward me, eyes shining with a hunger I didn't recognize. "Do you see now?" she whispered, and in the mirror the other Anya grinned. I barely slept after that night. Each time my eyes closed, I saw the reflection again, its smile curving wider than human lips should allow, its gaze fixed on me with a hunger that stripped away my breath. When I woke, sweat clung to me like a second skin, and the faint smell of incense lingered in the room, though I hadn't lit any. Anya, on the other hand, seemed calm. Too calm. She moved with a grace that unsettled me, her gestures too precise, her words too measured. Sometimes she would stare at me for long stretches, unblinking, until I turned away. And always the bracelet gleamed on her wrist, the red bead throbbing faintly in the half-light. I remembered the old man's warning. They see you. And once they see you, they want more. So I went searching. At dawn, I walked to a temple at the edge of the city. The golden spire pierced the morning sky. Bells chimed with each breath of wind, and the smell of sandalwood thickened the air. Monks in saffron robes moved silently through the courtyard, their chants low and resonant, echoing against the stone walls. Inside, the main hall was dim, lit only by rows of candles flickering before statues of the Buddha. I found a monk seated cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed, his breathing steady. Something in his stillness made me hesitate, but I forced myself forward. "My friend," I began, she wears a bracelet, a charm. Since then, strange things have happened. Voices, reflections. I don't know what to do." The monk's eyes opened slowly. They were dark, calm, but behind them I sensed an ocean of sorrow. "You should not have touched these things," he said softly. His English was simple, but his tone left no space for misunderstanding. "Charm for love is never free. What you call upon, it calls upon you." "Can you help her?" I asked desperately. He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. "Help must come from her. If her heart still belongs to this world, there is a chance. But if she has already given herself to them—" He let the words trail off. I pressed him, but he would say no more. That evening I returned to the hotel. Anya was waiting in the room, standing before the mirror again. She turned as I entered, her lips stretching into that too perfect smile. "Where did you go?" she asked. "To the temple," I admitted. The smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, and something sharp flickered in her eyes. "They don't like that." "Who doesn't?" I demanded. She tilted her head, her hair falling across her face. When she spoke again, her voice was layered, hers and something beneath, a second tone vibrating through the air. "The ones who brought you back to me." Cold spread through my veins. Anya, this isn't you. Fight it. Take the bracelet off. She laughed then, but it wasn't her laugh. It was low, guttural, scraping at my ears. You still don't understand. Without this, I am nothing. Without this, you would never have returned. Her hand rose, fingers brushing the red bead, and for a moment her skin seemed to ripple around it, like water disturbed by a hidden current. I backed away, heart hammering, and left the room before she could say more. That night I wandered until I found myself back in the alley where the old man had spoken to me. But he wasn't there. Instead, a younger woman stood by a stall of herbs and charms, her face shadowed by a hood. She looked up as I approached, her eyes glinting in the lamplight. "You're with her," she said, just as the old man had. I swallowed hard. "Yes, and I don't know how to save her." The woman's smile was thin. "Maybe you can't, but remember this. Love charms are not love. They are chains, and chains do not care who they bind." Before I could ask more, she turned away, melting into the shadows as though she had never been there. When I returned to the hotel, the room was dark. I called Anya's name, but no answer came. Then I saw it. She stood at the far end of the room, her back to me, facing the mirror. Slowly she turned. Her face was hers, but stretched, distorted, as though the skin itself didn't fit. Her eyes gleamed, black and endless, and when she smiled, I felt something inside me fracture. "Do you see now?" she whispered, voice echoing with that same layered timbre. And for the first time, I knew the truth. The woman I had loved was no longer standing before me. What wore her skin was something else. I had always thought of fear as something sharp, immediate, a jolt of adrenaline when a car swerved too close, or a shadow moved in the dark. But what I felt now was slower, heavier. It was a weight pressing down on my chest with every breath, reminding me that each step carried me deeper into something I could not measure, could not fight. Anya was no longer herself. That truth sank into me like ice, though I still couldn't bring myself to say it aloud. I told myself she was sick, cursed, possessed, anything but gone. Yet the memory of her twisted smile in the dark made a liar of me. I could not stand idle any longer. The next morning, I went searching again. The city was alive with its ordinary rhythms. Vendors laying out fresh fruit, children chasing stray dogs through narrow alleys, monks accepting offerings in their bowls. Yet beneath it all, I felt an undercurrent, like a hidden drumbeat no one else could hear. Each face I passed seemed shadowed by a quiet knowing. When I asked about charms, about spirits, people avoided my eyes. Some muttered Phi Pob, hungry ghosts said to devour flesh and souls. Others whispered of Phi Tai Hong, the restless spirits of those who had died violently. Each word clung to me like cobwebs, but no one would say more. Finally, an old woman selling lotus flowers by the river took pity on me. Her back was bent, her hands trembling as she tied stems into bundles. She leaned closer when I asked, her voice like a fraying thread. "There is a man," she said, "not monk, not priest. He keeps the old ways. He knows how to see the shadows others ignore." She scribbled something on the back of a receipt, an address scrawled in looping Thai letters. I followed the directions out of the city, the streets thinning into dirt roads lined with banana trees and fields shimmering under the sun. The air grew quieter there, as if even the insects hushed in respect. The house stood alone, blackened wood sagging with age. Wind chimes made of bone and shells clattered in the breeze, their sound too discordant, like laughter cut short. The man who opened the door was wiry, his skin the color of old leather, his eyes dark as coal. Around his neck hung a string of charms carved from bone and wood. He studied me for a long moment before speaking. "You bring their scent," he said finally in accented English. "The ones who wait in the glass." My blood chilled. "You know about them?" He nodded, motioning me inside. The air was thick with smoke from herbs burning in clay pots. Animal skulls dangled from the rafters, their hollow sockets watching. On the floor lay a woven mat surrounded by candles, bowls of rice, and strips of paper covered in red ink symbols that twisted like veins. She wears a kun sai, I said, a bracelet. Since then, she has changed. The shaman's face tightened. Foolish girl, foolish heart. Kun sai is not for love. It is for binding. When you bind one thing, others come, pulled by the thread. They slip into the empty spaces. They take what they want. Can you stop it? My voice cracked with desperation. He looked at me for a long time, then lit a candle with a thin match. The flame flickered, weak but steady. His eyes reflected it, sorrowful. I can try, but understand, he tapped his chest. Love is not enough. Something stronger must be given. Blood, memory, sacrifice. If you are not ready, she will be lost. And maybe you too. His words struck deep. I thought of the day I left her, of the silence in her voice when I told her it was over. Hadn't I already sacrificed her once, for my own fear? Was this the price of my cowardice? Before I could answer, the air shifted. A chill swept through the room, snuffing out the candle. The shadows thickened, pressing against the walls like water swelling against glass. Then the door creaked. Anya stood there. Only it wasn't her. Her skin seemed stretched, too tight, her eyes too wide. The bracelet glowed bright, the red bead pulsing in rhythm with something that was not her heart. The shaman rose slowly, his face pale. He began to chant, low and fast, words that vibrated against the floor. The air quivered, the symbols on the paper cloths shuddering as if alive. Anya's lips curled into that slow smile. Her voice when it came was layered, jagged. He is mine. The floor trembled. The bowls of rice toppled, grains scattering across the mat like teeth. The skulls rattled overhead, hollow laughter filling the air. The shaman's voice grew louder, almost frantic. For a moment the shadows recoiled, but then Anya raised her wrist, and the red bead blazed like a coal about to burst. The candle's flame went out. Darkness swallowed the room. When my eyes adjusted, she was gone. The shaman's breath rattled as he slumped back against the wall. His face gleamed with sweat, his eyes glassy with fear. You waited too long, he whispered. If you want to save her, you must pay the price, or she will not be the one who comes back. Pooh. The shaman's house smelled of herbs, old smoke, and something coppery beneath it all. He sat across from me in the dim glow of a single oil lamp, his face hollow, his hands stained with the ink of charms he had drawn. The candlelight flickered over animal skulls hanging from the rafters, their hollow sockets like watchful eyes. You cannot break the chain, he said. Only replace it. I stared at him, throat dry. What do you mean? He set aside the strip of yellow cloth he'd been writing on and looked at me with eyes too tired for their own age. Love charms are bargains. When she asked for you back, she offered her heart. Now it is bound. To unbind it, something must be given in return. Blood, memory, soul. There is no other way. The words fell like stones into water, sending ripples through me that would never settle. I thought of Anya's devotion, the way she had clung to me even when I turned away. I thought of the day I ended it, of the silence on the phone when I told her I was done. I had thought I was being kind, merciful by letting her go. But kindness does not leave someone standing in the rain, staring at a love torn from them. I had been a coward, dressing selfishness in mercy. And now, because of me, she was caught in something far darker than heartbreak. The shaman leaned forward. If you give nothing, she will fade. The shadow will wear her skin until nothing of her remains. His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked toward the dark corners of the room, as if expecting them to move. I wanted to scream, at him, at myself, at the world that had let this bargain exist at all. Instead, my voice cracked. And if I give what you ask, you may save her, he said, but you will lose what you give, forever. The word burned, forever. That night I left the house with the small bone-handled blade wrapped in cloth, heavier than stone in my pocket. The air outside was cool, thick with the smell of rain-soaked soil. Somewhere in the distance, temple bells tolled, deep and mournful, each note stretching across the night like a funeral dirge. I walked without direction, past shrines glowing faintly with incense smoke, past paper lanterns swaying in the wind. In every shadow, I thought I saw her eyes. In every pool of water, her reflection rippled, silent and waiting. When I reached the hotel, my hands were shaking. Anya was waiting in the room. She stood before the mirror, her reflection faintly delayed, her body moving a heartbeat slower than the image. She turned as I entered, her lips parting in a smile that was both familiar and strange. "Where did you go?" she asked. "To the temple," I admitted. For a fraction of a second, her face faltered. Something dark flickered behind her eyes, quick and sharp as a knife. Then she smiled again, too quickly. "They don't like that." "Who doesn't?" I demanded. Her head tilted, hair falling like a curtain. Her voice dropped, layered with that guttural echo I dreaded. "The ones who brought you back to me." I stumbled back a step, chest tight. "Anya, listen to me," I said desperately. "This isn't you. Fight it. Take the bracelet off." Her laugh scraped across the walls like broken glass. "You still don't understand. Without this, I am nothing. Without this, you would never have returned." She raised her wrist, and the red bead glowed brighter than I had ever seen. For a moment, her skin around it rippled, like water disturbed by an unseen hand. I took a step forward, meaning to tear it off, but she recoiled with a strength that wasn't hers. Her face twisted, lips curling as the layered voice hissed, "Don't touch what isn't yours." The words vibrated through the room, shaking the lamp on the table, rattling the window pane. My breath caught in my throat. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the darkness slipped away. She blinked at me, her expression soft, bewildered, as if she didn't remember what had just passed her lips. "I'm tired," she whispered. She climbed into bed without another word, curling on her side. I stood frozen, watching her chest rise and fall, trying to reconcile the girl I once loved with the thing that had spoken through her. I couldn't sleep. I sat at the desk, the blade laid out before me, the shaman's words echoing. Blood, memory, soul. Could I do it? Could I give up what little I had left of myself to save her? Once the answer would have been no. I had already proven that. I had walked away when she needed me most. But now? Now the thought of leaving her again was unbearable. The irony bit deep. I had left her because I thought love was too heavy, too consuming. Now the only way to save her was to let it consume me completely. At some point, exhaustion pulled me under. I dreamed of her standing at the river, lanterns floating around her face lit by soft gold. She called my name, her voice gentle, real. For the first time in weeks, she looked like herself. I reached for her, but when I touched her hand, it was cold glass beneath my fingers. And then I saw my own face in the river, smiling when I wasn't. I woke with a start, sweat slick on my skin. The blade glinted faintly in the dark. By dawn, I had decided I would pay whatever price the shadows demanded, because I had already lost her once, and I would not do it again. The shaman's house smelled of iron and smoke. Candles burned in every corner, their flames wavering as though stirred by invisible hands. Strips of yellow cloth covered the walls, each marked with looping symbols that seemed to crawl if I stared too long. In the center of the room lay a circle of rice, broken only where a small wooden bowl of water sat, its surface reflecting the candlelight like liquid glass. He motioned me to sit inside the circle. "When she comes," he said, "do not step out. The rice is the line between worlds. Cross it, and you are theirs." My throat tightened. "And Anya?" His gaze was grave. "She will come, but so will the one who holds her. You must show them which of you is stronger." I nodded, though my hands trembled. The bone-handled blade rested before me, its edge catching the firelight. The chanting began low, steady, a rhythm that throbbed like a heartbeat. The shaman sprinkled herbs onto the flames, filling the air with a bitter smoke that clawed at my lungs. The room grew colder, the shadows lengthening until they pressed close against the edge of the circle. For a while, nothing happened. The chanting rose and fell, echoing like waves against a shore. I tried to steady my breath, but every flicker of shadow seemed alive, bending toward me. Then the door creaked. Anya stepped inside. Her face was pale, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. At first, relief surged through me. It was her. It had to be. But as she drew closer, I saw the gleam in her eyes, black and endless, and the smile that stretched too wide across her face. The shaman's voice rose, sharp and urgent. The symbols on the cloth seemed to shimmer, the bowl of water rippling though no hand touched it. Anya laughed, the sound jagged and layered. "You think your chants can silence me?" Her voice cracked, then deepened, carrying a resonance that made my bones vibrate. "He belongs to me now. He crossed the ocean to stand in my shadow." I gripped the blade. "Anya, fight it! I know you're still in there." Her expression flickered. For an instant I saw her eyes, real eyes wet with fear, before the darkness swallowed them again. The shaman barked something in Thai, then looked at me. "Blood!" he shouted. "Give your blood!" My chest tightened. My hands shook as I pressed the blade against my palm. The metal bit, shallow at first, then deeper, and warmth spilled across my skin. I let it drip into the bowl of water. The ripples spread, glowing faintly as if lit from within. The shadows shrieked. Anya staggered, clutching her wrist. The red bead pulsed violently, faster and faster, like a heart about to burst. Her reflection in the bowl did not match her movements. It reached for me, lips shaping a single word. "Please." The air trembled. The reflection rose higher until it was no longer bound to the bowl. Two Anyas now, one before me, grinning with black eyes, and one in the glass, pale and desperate, her hands pressed against the surface as though drowning behind it. The shaman's chant grew frantic. The room shook, skulls rattling, candles guttering. I stared at her, the real her, trapped in that shining surface. She lifted her hand, pressing it to the glass. "Come," the other voice hissed through Anya's lips. "Join her. Cross the glass. You can be together forever." The bowl cracked. Water spilled across the floor, the rice scattering. The line between worlds blurred. I felt the pull, strong and cold, dragging me toward the mirror. And as the glass shimmered like water, I saw her, Anya, reaching out, her eyes filled with terror and love. All I had to do was take her hand. But the ritual did not stop there. The shaman slammed his palm to the floor, scattering powders that burst into flames around the circle. The fire leapt high, blue and green, and the smell of burning herbs filled the air. He shouted words I did not understand, syllables so harsh they tore the silence apart. Anya, the one standing in flesh, thrashed violently. Her head snapped back, her mouth opening too wide, a scream pouring out that was not hers. The sound shook the rafters, rattled the skulls, made the floorboards groan, as if the earth itself were recoiling. Her shadow stretched unnaturally, crawling up the walls until it dwarfed her body. It bent at wrong angles, arms lengthening into claws, eyes opening along its form. The shaman threw salt into the fire. Sparks hissed and flared. "Do not listen," he shouted at me. "Hold her in memory. The shadow cannot take what you refuse to give." But I had no memory left. My mind was a hollow. Still, I reached toward the glass. The cold bit into my fingers like knives, searing through flesh and bone. Anya's hand pressed against mine from the other side, trembling. Her lips moved silently. "Don't let go." The reflection wavered, splitting further. The false Anya shrieked, her face tearing, skin peeling away to reveal something beneath. Something faceless, eyeless, yet full of hunger. The real Anya screamed from the glass, and the sound pierced me like a blade. The circle of rice disintegrated. The fire roared higher, Shadows clawed at my arms, trying to drag me through. The shaman's voice cracked, desperate. Choose. Choose now, or both will be lost. I don't know how long I knelt there, blood dripping from my hand, the void pulling at me from all sides. The two faces of Anya blurred, twisted, fought, and I knew with a terrible certainty that whatever choice I made would bind me forever. The mirror rippled like water, its surface stretching outward, shimmering as though it longed to swallow the room. Cold seeped from it, crawling over the floor and up my legs until my breath turned to mist. The walls moaned as if under pressure, the ceiling beams creaked, and even the candle flames bent toward the glass, pulled by its gravity. I tried to move, but my body was caught in two tides. The Anya before me, the one in flesh, eyes black as tar, smiled with her too wide grin. Her lips parted, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than they should have been. Take her hand, she coaxed. Her voice was sweet and venomous at once. End this struggle. You wanted her back. You wanted to be hers forever. Join us. You'll never be alone again. Behind the glass, the other Anya pounded against the surface. Her face was pale, tear-streaked, her lips forming the words through a blur of water and light. Don't. Please don't. The sound fractured me. Both voices hers, both faces hers. My mind spun, torn between devotion and dread. Which was the real Anya? Which was the mask? The shaman's voice cut through, rising like thunder. He hurled powders into the fire, the flames surging blue. Remember her, he shouted. Not the shadow, the woman you knew. But I didn't, not fully. My memories were threads, slipping through my grasp. Her laughter in the rain, the touch of her hand in mine. These fragments floated up, but they had no anchor. They felt like stories told to me, not moments I had lived. The creature sneered, her black eyes glinting. Memories fade, I am forever. Her reflection flickered, twisting grotesquely. Her smile stretched until it split her cheeks, black veins spidering across her skin. The red bead pulsed on her wrist, bright as a coal about to burst. The shaman pressed a strip of yellow cloth into my bleeding palm. Blood and memory, he barked. Give it, now! My hand shook. I lifted the blade again, cutting deeper this time. The pain was sharp, bright, almost clean. Blood welled, spilling down my wrist. I smeared it across the cloth, whispering her name. Anya! The symbols ignited, blazing red. The cloth writhed in my grip, as though alive, feeding on my pain. The mirror screamed, not the sound of glass, but something organic, shrill, furious, alive. The faceless Anya staggered, her body convulsing, the shadows around her twisting into claws and mouths. Through the glass, the real Anya grew clearer. Her lips moved, her voice finally breaking through. Hold on! I lunged, pressing my bloodied palm against the glass. It was ice at first, searing into my flesh, then soft, like pushing through liquid. Her hand pressed against mine from the other side, fragile, trembling, but real. The false Anya shrieked. Her body tore open, unraveling, dozens of eyes spilling across her skin. Each one blinked in unison, staring at me with hunger. Her shadow stretched, arms elongating, claws scraping the floor, reaching for me. The room convulsed. Candles burst, their flames extinguished in showers of sparks. Skulls rattled overhead, clattering against the beams like bones in a grave. The shaman roared, his chant splitting the air like lightning. He thrust more salt into the flames, and the fire flared white. For a moment the creature recoiled, shrieking, but its many voices pierced my skull. Give more, give all, or we will take her. Then came the visions. The glass shimmered, and suddenly I was elsewhere. A library, her smile across the table, her notebook stained with coffee, a rainy street, her laughter as I held an umbrella over her. Our first kiss, soft and uncertain. Then just as quickly the visions turned sour. The day I ended it. Her silence on the phone. the hollow in her voice when she whispered, "There must be a way." "See?" the creature hissed, its mouth grinning. "You broke her. You gave her to us. She chose us because you left." The guilt struck harder than any blade. My knees buckled, but through the storm I heard her voice. Not the creature's, not the shadows. Hers. "Don't let them in." I forced myself up, blood dripping from my hand onto the floor, staining the rice that had already scattered. My vision blurred, but I kept my palm pressed to the glass. "You are mine," I said hoarsely, "not theirs." Her eyes widened, shining with hope. The cloth in my hand burned, searing my skin. The shaman shouted something I couldn't understand, his words drowned by the roar of the fire and the screams of the creature. The false Anya split open, her form unraveling into smoke and mouths, claws flailing wildly. She lunged at me, shadows crashing against my chest. I staggered, but I didn't let go of the real Anya's hand. The room fractured, the air filled with the smell of burning hair, of incense, of blood. And then the two Anyas, flesh and glass, began to merge. Her body convulsed, her features flickering between faces, hers, the shadows, and something else altogether, ancient and monstrous. The mirror pulsed, the bead glowed, the world tilted. And I knew the fight was not to pull her out. The fight was to keep myself from being dragged in. The mirror roared like a storm. Its surface cracked, shards of light splitting into jagged veins that spread across the walls and ceiling. The air itself bent, warping around the glass as if the entire house were about to collapse inward. Anya screamed. Her voice doubled. One human, one monstrous. Her body shuddered, her wrists bound by invisible chains, the red bead pulsing like a frantic heart. Every pulse shook the room. The skulls rattled. The rice circles smoldered. The shaman's chants rose higher, tearing through the cacophony. His voice wavered but did not break, syllables pounding like drums. He threw another handful of salt and ash into the flames, and the fire flared blinding white. "Now," he barked, "give what must be given." I looked at my hand, already bleeding, the cloth seared into my palm. My body trembled with exhaustion. My memories flickered in and out like a candle burning low. The creature inside Anya laughed through her mouth. "He cannot. He is weak. He chose himself before. He will again." Her shadow lunged, stretching long claws across the circle. They snapped an inch from my face, cold enough to burn. My breath stuttered. The shaman thrust a knife into my other hand. Its blade was blackened, etched with faint symbols. "Memory," he said, voice fierce. "Feed the cloth. Feed it what you fear to lose most." I stared down at the blade, my throat closing. Memory, not just blood. The creature hissed. "Do not listen. Do not throw yourself away for her. She is already ours." The real Anya, faint within the mirror, pressed her palms to the surface, her face wet with tears. "Don't leave me." And in that instant, the weight of everything I had done came crashing down, leaving her, dismissing her pain, pretending it was mercy. I had always chosen escape, always run, but not this time. I raised the blade to my temple. My hand shook so violently I thought I would drop it. "Take it," I whispered. "Take everything of me if it saves her." The shaman slammed his hand against the floor. "Do not bargain with shadows. Give, but do not surrender. Choose carefully or you will vanish." I closed my eyes, and I thought of her. Not the creature, not the reflection. Her. The day we met in the library. The way she teased me over my handwriting. The warmth of her hand in mine during that rainy night in Bangkok. The small, fragile moments that defined us. And then, the last time we spoke, her silence like a grave. I pressed the blade deeper against my temple until pain bloomed bright. Then I whispered, "I give you that night." The blade seared. A rush tore through me, like water pouring out of a cracked vessel. My chest hollowed. Something slipped from me, invisible yet heavy, and bled into the cloth. I gasped, nearly falling forward. And then the mirror changed. The shadow shrieked, staggering as though struck. Its many mouths gaped, its claws retracting. Black smoke poured from Anya's eyes, streaming into the glass. The reflection of the real Anya grew stronger, her form solidifying. But the cost struck me instantly. The memory was gone. I tried to recall her voice on that night, her silence, her despair, but it was blank. A hole in my mind, raw and aching. The shaman barked, "Again!" The shadows swirled, surging back. The bead burned bright red, cracking as though it would burst. I pressed the blade to my head again, tears blinding me. Take the moment we first kissed." My voice broke as the memory was torn away. The sweetness of that night dissolved like smoke, leaving only emptiness. The creature howled, writhing as more smoke spilled out of Anya's body. The mirror pulsed violently, the surface breaking open like water. The reflection reached through. Her hand emerged, trembling, dripping glass-like liquid. I grabbed it with my bloody palm, holding on as though my life depended on it. The shadows screamed, "More, more, or she will never be whole." The shaman shouted at me over the roar, "Choose wisely, too much and she returns. But you are lost." I pressed the blade again. My breath shook. I thought of her eyes under the paper lanterns by the river, her laughter in the dark. Memories precious enough to kill me. And I realized the truth. The offering was not about her. It was about me. How much of myself I was willing to let go. I leaned close to the mirror, blood dripping down my face. Take the day I ended it. Take my cowardice. Let me keep the love and take the cruelty. The blade flared. Heat coursed through my skull. The memory burned away, torn from me, leaving only the sweetness of what came before. The shadow shrieked, splitting apart, its body unraveling like smoke. Anya collapsed, her body limp, the bead cracking open, spilling dark liquid onto the floor. I dragged her fully through the glass. Her skin was cold, her body trembling, but she was real, in my arms again. The mirror shattered, shards exploding outward, embedding in the walls. The house shuddered, the flames extinguished, leaving only darkness. For a long moment, the only sound was our breath, hers ragged but alive, mine shallow, as if half of me had been left behind. The shaman lit another candle with shaking hands. His face was pale, drenched in sweat. "It is done," he said softly. "She is free." I looked down at her. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and confused. For the first time in weeks, there was no shadow behind them. But when she whispered my name, I felt nothing. The sound of it stirred no memory, no warmth. The moment we had first shared it, the meaning it had once carried, it was gone. I had saved her, but I had offered too much. I held her, the silence pressing heavy between us, knowing what I had given could never return. Her breath trembled against my chest, shallow but alive. She whispered my name, and though her lips shaped the sound I once longed for, it struck me like an echo in a place I could no longer reach. I had pulled her back from the glass, but in doing so, I had lost the pieces of myself that tied me to her. The candlelight flickered over the broken shards scattered on the floor. Each fragment shimmered faintly, and in their fractured reflections, something still watched. Something not entirely gone. I turned away, clutching her tighter. We had survived the ritual, but the night was not finished with us. We stumbled out of the shaman's house into the thick night air. The world outside seemed unchanged, the same chorus of cicadas, the same scent of damp earth after rain. Yet everything in me had shifted. Anya leaned against me, her steps weak, her skin cold as stone. She was free, yes, but not untouched. The shadows hadn't vanished. They lingered, clinging to her breath, her eyes to the tremor in her voice when she tried to speak. And I was hollow. Memories I once held like treasures had slipped into the void, leaving only silence where warmth had been. The shaman's warning still rang in my ears. Too much, and she returns, but you are lost. As we made our way down the dirt path, lantern light flickering in the distance, I realized the ritual had not ended. It had only changed shape. The curse was no longer just hers. It was ours. We stopped near the riverbank. The moon hung low, broken in the current's ripples. Anya sank onto the stone steps, her body sagging like a marionette with its strings cut. She held her face in her hands, trembling. I don't remember, she whispered. Her voice was thin, raw. I don't remember how I got here. I crouched beside her, unsure of my own reflection. You don't need to, I said softly. You're here now. That's enough. But as the words left my mouth, I tasted the hollowness in them, because I too didn't remember. Not truly. The night we had last spoken, the end, the break that pushed her toward the darkness, was gone. Torn from me like a page ripped out of a book. I searched her face for recognition, for some fragment of the woman I had loved. But her eyes darted toward the water, dark and restless, as if she still heard whispers I could not. The shaman had warned me the curse might cling. It was not a clean cut, not a chain broken, but rather shifted. Some part of it still lived in her. Some part of it still lived in me. We found shelter at a roadside inn, the kind with thin walls and lamps that flickered from the slightest wind. I laid her down on the straw mat, covered her with a blanket, and sat beside her until her breath slowed. Yet sleep did not come for me. In the stillness, I replayed fragments of memory like a broken reel, her laugh under lantern light, the feel of her hand in mine, the taste of coffee on her lips, and then nothing. Every attempt to recall the pain, the cruelty, the breaking of us was met with emptiness. I had bartered those moments away. Without them, my love for her had become lopsided, a story missing its ending. Was it still love, if I no longer remembered the wound? Or was it something else, something weaker, fragile, incomplete? The mirror was gone, but it had left another behind, inside me. I must have dozed because when I opened my eyes, the room was steeped in pre-dawn blue. Anya was sitting upright, staring at the small mirror nailed to the wall. Her back was rigid, her hair falling in tangled waves over her shoulders. I pushed myself up. Anya? She didn't turn. I rose, heart pounding, and stepped behind her. Her reflection looked back at me with eyes that were not hers, black, endless, gleaming with the faintest smirk. I grabbed her shoulder, she flinched, gasped, and just like that, the reflection shifted. Only her, pale, exhausted, confused. Why did you do that? She whispered. I swallowed hard. I thought I saw... But the words died, because the truth was, I had. The shadow had not left. It lingered, just as I feared. We left at dawn, walking along the road lined with banyan trees, their roots twisted like veins above the soil. Anya clung to my arm. She seemed small, almost childlike, as though the ritual had stripped not just the curse, but pieces of her strength. Do you remember, she asked quietly, the river lanterns? The ones we let go together? I hesitated. My chest tightened. I remembered the glow, yes. The way they drifted downstream like stars set free. I remembered her hand brushing mine. But the reason why we were there, what words we had spoken, the wish we had whispered, gone. I forced a smile. Yes. But even as I said it, she looked away, as though she sensed the fracture. By noon, the weight of silence between us became unbearable. Anya, I said, do you feel different? She turned, her expression unreadable. Like I'm in a borrowed body. Like I'm here, but not fully. Sometimes I hear things, voices in corners, whispers in glass. Sometimes I think I'm still there. Her hands tightened on the bead, now cracked and blackened, still tied to her wrist. I should throw this away, she said. I reached for it. Then do it. But she only shook her head, clutching it tighter. I can't. Not yet. The way she said it chilled me, not with fear, but with recognition, because I too clung to what I should have let go, to her, to us, to memories that were already half gone. That night, under the thatched roof of another roadside hut, I awoke to the sound of footsteps, soft, deliberate, almost like wooden clogs on stone. I sat up. Anya's mat was empty. Panic surged. I stumbled out into the night, the air thick with the scent of wet soil and incense from a nearby shrine. She stood before the shrine, head bowed, the cracked bead glowing faintly on her wrist. Her lips moved, whispering words I couldn't hear. Anya, I called softly. She turned. Her face was hers, but her eyes glinted black for a split second before softening again. I was praying, she said, voice shaking. Praying it won't follow us. But I knew the truth. It wasn't following us. It was already here. We kept moving for days, but the road was endless. With each village we passed, the same unease shadowed us. People stared too long at Anya, their eyes narrowing, as if sensing what lingered. Dogs barked at her. Children hid behind their mothers. And at night, when the lamps flickered low, she would wake gasping, whispering my name with terror in her eyes. I held her each time, whispering reassurances I barely believed. But the more I held her, the more I realized. She was no longer only Anya. She was something more, something split. And perhaps I was too. One evening we sat by the river again. The water reflected the stars, endless and cold. She leaned against me, silent. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. What? Saving me. The question pierced deeper than any blade. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I would pay the price 1,000 times again. But the words caught in my throat, tangled with the hollow ache of what I had lost. I looked at her, really looked, at the cracks in her smile, at the way shadows clung to her skin like a second layer, at the bead pulsing faintly, as if still alive. And I realized this was not rescue. This was inheritance. The curse had not been destroyed. It had been passed on, bound between us. The night deepened. Crickets sang. Lanterns burned low. Anya rested her head on my shoulder. I feel like we're still in it, she whispered, like we never left that house. I tightened my arms around her, even as dread coiled in my chest, because she was right. And the longer I held her, the more I wondered. When morning came, whose eyes would I see looking back at me? The night did not end. It stretched, heavy and endless, like a shroud over our footsteps. We left the river at first light, though the sky seemed dimmer than it should have been. Anya walked close, her hand gripping mine, but her skin was clammy, her pulse uneven. The bead on her wrist had stopped glowing, yet I felt it thrum faintly when our fingers touched, as if its heart still beat between us. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that the ritual had worked, that what we carried was merely memory, fear, the aftermath of a nightmare. But the further we walked, the more the world seemed to bend around us. The trees leaned in, dogs whined as we passed, shopkeepers glanced up, then quickly away, as though avoiding a truth they dared not name. By the third village, I could not ignore it anymore. We stopped at a tea stall. The old woman behind the counter set down 2 cups, her hands trembling. She never once looked directly at Anya. When Anya lifted her cup, the woman flinched, spilling hot water across the counter. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask why, but the woman shook her head sharply, eyes wide. Then she muttered, almost spitting the words, Kun Sai, leave this place. Anya froze. I felt her grip on my arm tighten until her nails pressed into my skin. I reached for the woman. No, you don't understand. It's finished. But she backed away, shaking her head violently. Not finished. Never finished. You cannot bargain with hunger. You can only feed it. Her words rang in my chest like a temple bell. When we left, the road ahead seemed darker, though the sun was high. That night, Anya spoke in her sleep. At first, it was my name, whispered, desperate, clinging. But then it shifted, becoming guttural, low, a sound that did not belong to her. I sat frozen, listening, as the voice in her throat changed again and again. Man, woman, child, until it no longer seemed human at all. I shook her awake. Her eyes flew open, wide and terrified. "What?" she gasped. "You were dreaming," I said quickly. She searched my face, searching for truth. Then she whispered, "No, not dreaming. It wants me back." Her words lingered like frost in the room. The days blurred. We kept moving, as though distance might save us. But everywhere we went, the signs returned. Reflections rippled wrong in still water. Shadows leaned toward her. And once, in the polished steel of a passing bus, I saw her face split. Half her own, half the black-eyed smile of the thing I thought I had banished. Each time she swore she didn't see it. Each time I swore I would protect her. But inside, a hollow truth gnawed. I was not saving her. I was only delaying the inevitable. It happened on the seventh night. We found lodging in a dilapidated guest house on the edge of a market town. The walls were thin, the floorboards loose, the windows without shutters. I lit a single candle. Anya sat before the mirror nailed to the wall, brushing her hair. I felt unease coil in me, but I said nothing. I watched the way her reflection moved, slightly out of sync, a beat too slow, as though caught in a different rhythm. Then it spoke, not her lips, only the reflections. It smiled. "You took her back, but she belongs to me." My heart thundered. I stumbled forward, grabbing the mirror. Anya gasped, dropping her brush. "What are you doing?" The reflection smirked, eyes glinting black. "You cannot keep her. You gave too much. You are hollow. Soon she will be too." I struck the mirror. The glass cracked, splintering into jagged lines. Anya screamed, not from fear, but pain. Blood welled on her cheek where no shard had touched her. I froze. The bead on her wrist pulsed once, twice, then went dark. We fled before dawn. Anya's strength waned with each step. She leaned on me, her breath shallow, her skin clammy with sweat. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. I wanted to tell her the truth, that the mirror had not been broken, only multiplied, that the thing was not outside us anymore. It was inside, but I could not. So I whispered lies instead. "You're safe. It's over." Even as I said it, I heard the echo. It's never over. By the time we reached the temple gates, she could barely walk. The monks took one look at her and recoiled. Yet one, an elder with a face lined by decades of smoke and prayer, stepped forward. "You brought her back," he said in Thai, his voice low, "but the shadow came with her." "Help her," I begged. He shook his head. "This is not a sickness to cure. It is a debt to pay, and the debt has no end." I clutched Anya tighter. There must be something, but he only touched his beads, eyes heavy with pity. "You should have let her go." That night I dreamed of her, not as she was, but as she had been, laughing under lanterns, hand-brushing mine, lips tasting of coffee. The fragments I had lost returned for a moment, shining, whole. But then her face shifted, her eyes turned black, and she whispered in a voice that was both hers and not hers, "You didn't save me. You only joined me." I woke with tears burning in my eyes. Beside me she slept, but her reflection in the window pane smiled. The last morning came with rain. We walked the road in silence, the world blurred by mist. My body ached with exhaustion, my mind with emptiness. Anya's steps faltered again and again, but she pressed on, clutching my hand like a lifeline. When we reached the hilltop, she stopped. "I can't," she whispered. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed with shadows. I feel it inside me, every breath. It's waiting. I tried to hold her, to tell her we could fight, that love was enough. But love is not stronger than hunger. She looked up at me, and for a heartbeat I saw her, only her, the girl I had once loved. Then her lips curved into that other smile, and I knew. I don't remember how long I stood there. I don't remember if I screamed or if the world itself went silent. All I know is this. When I looked into the rain-soaked glass of a shop window later, I did not recognize the face that stared back. It was mine, yes. But behind my eyes, something else looked out. Something patient. Something waiting. People say curses can be broken. That rituals, prayers, offerings can cleanse the darkness. But I know better. Curses don't end. They change hands. They pass from one soul to another, weaving themselves deeper into the fabric of memory, of love, of regret. I saved her life, yes. But in doing so, I bound myself to her fate. And if you ever find yourself walking through a night market in Thailand, if someone offers you a bracelet promising love, promising luck, don't take it. Because once you put it on, you will never truly take it off. Thanks for watching the whole video. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting stories.